From you, I have learned patience, tolerance, and faith.
Hello, this is Chris Brack from Eurogamer, and today I'm joined by J. Alan Brack, the executive producer on World of Warcraft. And hey, first, how's it going?
Fantastic. Second day of Blizzcon.
Yeah.
Really right here early in the morning, ready to go.
How did you find the opening ceremony yesterday? It's where all the big stuff happens.
It's pretty exciting. On the WoW front, there were two big things that we were really excited about. There was the movie announcement and have Duncan Jones come out and kind of introduce the trailer, which I think there was a lot of excitement about.
Sure.
And then was the Legion intro as well, which
Yeah.
I've been working on for a really long time. So it's great to see the fan reaction for that.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in
Okay.
a moment. But if we start off with, so I've been playing the demo
Great.
yesterday actually, and it's the Demon Hunter starting zone. First of all, where do you see Demon Hunters fitting into the game, both in terms of like the PvE and PvP? What is the role of a Demon Hunter?
Yeah, so there's two specs that the Demon Hunter's going to have. There's going to have, which is different than any other class that we've done. It's going to have one tanking spec and one DPS spec, and the idea behind it is that it's going to be a highly mobile class with a lot of fast moves, a lot of rushes, a lot of being able to double jump, different kind of things to be, really just the most mobile class that we've ever developed.
Sure. I mean, from playing around with it so far, it feels like the PvP side of that character is going to be a lot of fun. As you said, it's extremely mobile.
Yep.
The fact that it's got a double jump doesn't sound important, but it probably really is.
You've seen a lot of double jump in a lot of new games. There are a lot of different games, so that's not certainly anything that is pioneered by us. But we've never had it in WoW,
Sure.
and I think it's going to really feel a lot different in terms of how players interact with the terrain, how players kind of interact with different kinds of things you said, and then the PvP options is also very interesting.
So the arena gameplay often comes down to how you use the terrain, whether it's hugging pillars or
exactly. Line
holding
of
the
sight,
bridge.
very
Rather.
important.
What's your experience been like with the Demon Hunter in that kind of environment?
So we're still getting all the kind of specs and all the spells together. We haven't actually started a lot of the hardcore PvP testing. Most of the stuff has been about the starting experience and getting everything ready for BlizzCon. But as soon as we get back, we'll finish off the PvP stuff and be ready to go.
Sure. Okay, cool. Well, as we're talking about the starting area, a couple of things jumped out to me. Now, Warcraft doesn't necessarily always have good and evil characters, although there are some clear examples of both
Likes
of those.
to have ambiguity.
Yeah, but the Demon Hunter characters in particular, that story feels a bit darker. Is that fair to say?
I think so. You've got these Illidari, and the idea of that they consume demonic power and leave their lives behind in order to kind of embrace the power that they have within in order to kind of take the fight to the Burning Legion. We've got a lot of different stories and a lot of different ideas to kind of show you how the Illidari kind of come to be who they are and their relationship with Illidan that will release as time goes on, and I'm really excited about that aspect of the lore for sure.
Once you're out of that starting area, once you're in the rest of World of Warcraft, where your character is often the hero, and you can role play in whichever way you like, but generally you are the hero. You're the character that's doing good things.
Absolutely.
How does the potentially a little bit evil Demon Hunter fit into that?
Well, we're going to reveal, so the Demon Hunter starting experience actually starts back in the past when Illidan is kind of at the height of his power in the Black Temple.
Yep.
And you get sent off as one of his Illidari off to kind of do a mission, while players are actually attacking him at the Black Temple. So there's a little bit of flavor kind of back and forth of that. And so, what happens after players, because we know that players defeat Illidan, we know that happens. What happens to the Illidari after that? What is kind of their future, and how do they kind of carve out a space for themselves without their leader?
It's great. I mean, Warcraft has always had a very clear time frame, but this is the first time I can think of where World of Warcraft has kind of referenced the players in that kind of way.
I think it's the first time we've ever actually done anything like that.
Yeah.
It feels, if you played a lot of Black Temple, I spent a lot of time in Black Temple.
Yep.
I think it's a really interesting nostalgia kind of seeing the other side of the coin.
Yeah, I mean the starting area that I played through. How far into the Demon Hunter experience was that from the beginning or partway through?
That's the very beginning. There's different kind of halves that
Sure.
exist,
Yeah. So that was the first half of it.
Sure.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a little bit of a tease because as you get to the end of the demo, you're about to jump through a portal and help Illidan.
That's right.
Or try to help Illidan.
That's right.
But you can't. Can you give us any kind of hints as to how we know? So we know that the Wardens are going to capture these Demon Hunters and eventually going to be part of the Hidden Alliance. But
yes.
How does that work? How can they ever trust you?
I think let's leave it at that. I think you know that you're not successful in saving Illidan.
Sure.
You know that you're captured by the Wardens.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, because the Death Knights had the whole like being mind controlled by Arthas thing.
They had their great
that was
moment
an easy
where
out.
they got they kind of freed of Arthas's control,
Sure.
and now they're ready to kind of do their own thing.
This one's going to be a different kind of story.
A little bit different.
Okay, cool. Did they have to be Blood Elves and Night Elves? I'm not really an Elfman myself.
That's kind of historically a lot of the lore has been demon hunters as elves, and so that was one of the things that we talked about in terms of wanting to stay really true to. For people who are really not big fans of elves, we've heard that feedback. I don't think we've heard it quite as loud as until we got to Blizzcon and yesterday. Right, okay. So it's interesting. Is
that something you are thinking about, like, are you taking that feedback on board, or?
We're listening to it.
Okay.
You know, we were very deliberate in making this kind of an elf-only kind of class to kind of really fit and have a really tight kit. But it's interesting to hear the feedback from the fans for sure.
Okay, fair enough. Outside of that starting zone area, you guys have talked about the fact that the leveling zones in Legion are going to scale, so you can do them in any order, which sounds like a really cool idea. It's going to perhaps counter the kind of initial rush that everyone goes to the same area and you're waiting around to do the same quest kind of thing.
Yeah, the biggest thing about that's actually one of my favorite features that I'm most excited about the expansion is this idea of player agency, right? You have all these different zones that you can go, and each zone is kind of its own self-contained story, and you can decide what is the story that I'm most excited about, what is it that I want to actually do as a player, and you know, that's not gonna negatively influence my gaming experience. I can do that, and that's part of the game.
I'm sure that you're going to kind of look at how the expansion goes before you can make a decision, but do you see that perhaps being the standard going from this point onwards with other expansions, trying to...
We originally had this idea as part of something that we would do for expansion 8.0, which, and you know, we did a lot of the tech work for the demon invasions, and that was really kind of the start of this idea of, you know, hey, we want this level 1 player to be able to participate in this demon invasion with a level 100 player. And so how do we make that fair? How do we make that fun? How do we make it feel like you can contribute at every level 1? So that was kind of the original genesis of the idea. You know, as with all things, we're going to try this. We'll see how it goes. If it goes well, then I think it could be a model for going forward. I think on paper, it's one of those things where it feels very cool. It feels like it gives players a lot of choices. It gives them a lot of variety, and that all seems good. How it feels actually kind of from moment to moment gameplay and how it feels by the end, I think that's something we'll be looking at a lot.
Absolutely. So I guess there's a wider question going on from that. Why do zones need level requirements, or why have they needed them in the past? What is the purpose of having this area just for certain players?
Well, I mean, if you think about just a specific zone, you know, it's got mobs of a certain level. Those mobs have abilities of a certain level. You have abilities at a certain level. You do a certain amount of damage. You do a certain amount of healing. So there's a kind of a balance in that idea, and this idea of, you know, zones as a reward. Like, hey, one day I can't go into Burning Steps, but one day I'll be powerful enough and I can. And you fly over the Burning Steps, and it's like, wow, that place is terrible. I could never survive that. And then here it is, you know, days, weeks, months later, you actually do have enough powerful to take on that thing. You know, I think that idea is still valuable, right? I think that idea still has a lot behind it, but this is a different idea, and I think we can still achieve a lot of the things that we want to achieve, and also give players this ability to kind of choose their destiny.
Do you see it maybe having some kind of middle ground then between a bunch of zones that do scale and then maybe some kind of big finale?
Absolutely, it's possible to do that. We talked about having, you know, what would it be like for us to have, you know, here are these zones that you level, but here's this end game zone that's always max level. We could definitely do something like that. And we do have different ideas to have different, you know, max level content areas within the world that will basically only be max level. So we'll still have that, and that's one of the things that the system will hopefully give us.
Sure. I mean, there's been a lot of love for the intro cinematic that you mentioned before. Particularly, I think people really like seeing Sylvanas getting some kind of screen time.
It was you never necessarily, you have certain things that you know that people are going to react to. You have certain things, okay, people are going to be excited about this, that, and the other. People were more excited, I think, about Sylvanas than I think we expected.
Yeah, I played Forsaken, so I was delighted.
Awesome.
How do you kind of make that decision? There are so many key characters in the Warcraft universe, and there are so many races that you know players are going to be really attached to. How do you decide, right, this time we're going to really hit the Orc storyline? Is that based on like the number of players that play Orc characters, or how do you do it?
It's very organic.
Sure.
You know, and if I think about the story for how the intro kind of came together for this time around, you know, we wanted to have this demon invasion. We wanted to have the Alliance and Horde kind of having to come together and attack this, you know, the source of this kind of portal that is allowing demons into Azeroth. That Gul'dan has opened. You know, we wanted Varian, very quickly Varian became a key character and said, okay, well, he can be on the, you know, the ship that he's at, and then later on it's like, oh, well, we've got to show the Alliance and Horde coming in. We've got to have this moment where it's like, hey, here's the Horde ship. Are they attacking, or are they on the same side? And it's not really, it's ambiguous to the players.
Yep.
Then it becomes clear that they're on the same team, headed toward the kind of the same invasion, and really give this moment of like, oh, this Alliance and Horde kind of unity. Like, something is so big, it's much bigger than ourselves, that we have to team up. We have to kind of fight this together.
There's a great line that I think people have picked out, which was for Azeroth instead of for the Alliance.
Exactly.
Which is
cool.
cool.
Which is very intentional, obviously.
Excellent. Are there any other characters on the list right now that you think you haven't really given enough attention to so far?
Well, I think everyone has got kind of their pet characters, right? You know, I think. Yeah, I don't know if I want to say too much about that, because there's you know, there's a lot of things that we are going to reveal as time goes on in terms of different characters. You know, one of the things I will talk about is we did a sort of this Lords of War series before, where we kind of picked the different kind of warlords and had different stories to give players kind of an insight into kind of their backstory and their history. We've got the same thing planned with Gul'dan and with Illidan and with Khadgar, and so it'll be interesting to see kind of the story so far and different kind of histories of those three characters, which are major characters, obviously, in Warcraft lore and in Legion in specific.
One final point about the cinematic was when, as Varian was falling into the water, and I think does he take his shoulder pads off so he can get out?
He does.
I like that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people are joking about the fact that he switched backs from Arms to Fury.
Yes.
Which is a nice little Easter egg. When I watched that, I was worried that he wasn't coming back up. Like, there was a moment where I thought, well,
this is
he's just, you know, he's talking about his son and about how it's, you know, his ambitions for the future. Are you ready to kill characters off yet? Like, is that something that you? Obviously, we've seen Garrosh, but like, how big a decision is that for you guys? Because as I said, these characters, people have known them for years.
I think it's pretty significant. I mean, if you think about, you know, we definitely had other characters that we killed off. Illidan was obviously Illidan and Kael and Burning Crusade were obviously very significant. I think, you know, the one that hurt the fans the most was probably Lich King, right? And you know, because this is someone they played from the very beginning of Warcraft 3, back when he, you know, kind of just starting off his adventures and being a bratty kid, all the way to the kind of the end game where people are going to fight him in a raid. Like, that felt like a really interesting kind of complete Warcraft story, and I think it was very emotional for some people. So it's a tough decision. It's definitely a thing where you want to have the right story moments, you want to have the right emotional appeal, and, you know, is it this person's time, as it were. So.
Okay, cool. As long as it's not Sylvanas, we're all right.
No promises.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Absolutely, thank you.
Hello and welcome to Blizzcon 2015. It's day 2 and I haven't actually been on the show floor yet, so I'm going to do that, I think. Do you want to go in? Because they're not even from Warcraft. What is this? It's not even a Blizzard game. Unbelievable.